Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 1% Better Recruitment Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Kiriakou. I'm joined today by Kris Holland from Kitto. Chris, how are we doing, my friend?
Yeah, all right, mate. Thank you. Hello.
Cool. We've got a few interesting topics to talk about today. When Chris first reached out about coming on the pod, we spoke a little bit around some different things to talk about. And I looked at his LinkedIn profile and it said recruitment is a marketing job. Now, people that listen to the show probably know that I think quite the opposite. So I'm sure we'll get into that and have quite a nice little debate around that. But yeah, we're going to talk a lot about the marketing aspect. So I think recruiters listening to this, I'm sure they're going to get a shed load of value from Chris on the personal branding aspect. And also, if you're leading a business, you're a founder, etc. There's a lot of chat around like how do you actually KPI content. So we'll talk a little bit around that and how to differentiate yourself. So loads of interesting things we'll talk about. So why don't we just kick it off then, Chris? Why do you think recruitment's a marketing job, my friend?
I think that recruitment has become a marketing focused job, but that's less of a good strap line. Um,
Mhm.
so I think that, yeah, look, in when I started in recruitment, that was 13 years ago. It was still feasible that I could pick up the phone and call somebody completely cold and come off that with a conversion of some description, which might be like an interview for my candidate that I'm trying to get sent out to interview, or I might have picked up a job or a vacancy. Um, and that was something's happened. I mean, I remember it was very rare, but even back then, like there were some people that I would speak to way back when, and I would say to them, "Look, I'm a recruiter," and they'd say, "What's that? What does that mean?" And
Mm.
I, if you'd be able to then do the dream thing of from a sales perspective, which is that whole like, hey, education piece. These are the problems that I solve. Look how great we are. Um, I think that nowadays, so much of a recruiter's time is spent doing marketing, that it's a marketing job. And, if we are to believe um, a lot of the statistics and things out there, it can be, I think you reach 7 or 8 touch points before a sale, or sometimes it's 20, 25. Like those touch points before a sale can't be sales calls. It can't just be like, hey, I'm a recruiter, I'm dead good at recruiting. Do you want my candidate? Do you like my candidate? Do you want to hire my candidate? I'm really good at recruiting. Because you get your number blocked and you get your domain blacklisted. So it's all about increasingly, in my opinion, like, yeah, all the other elements that, it's enabling sales. It's very much a sales enablement job function from marketing and recruitment. But yeah, that's what I think. That's why I think it is. I think the recruiters spend a lot of the time doing marketing.
Mm. It's an interesting point, really, because I think similar to you, I got into recruitment just over 12 years ago, and we didn't use LinkedIn. We didn't use any marketing tools or technology stack, nothing. It was literally here's a list of a few thousand contacts, here's a phone, go and call them, go and get some jobs. Here's a job board, go and find some candidates, add them to the system. That was literally it, right? It was
Mm.
pretty archaic, very different now. So when you say so something you said there that I quite like actually, it's like the sales enablement stuff, right? Because I think some people that listen to that and maybe see recruitment is a marketing job, some people might get a little bit confused. So when you're talking about the marketing steps to enable you to get on the phone and get in front of someone, etc., like what are those steps?
Um, I think it's the full. Well, if you think about it from a customer journey, it's like the full marketing mix. So it would be everything from coming across your brand, in whatever way they come across your brand. It might be they come across your website, it might be referral, it might be word of mouth.
Mm,
It might be seeing a LinkedIn post from one of your consultants, it might be receiving an email, it might be receiving a DM on LinkedIn, it might be receiving a text or WhatsApp. Like, all that I would consider to be, outbound push focus marketing communications. And yeah, and then that is how they will sort of come into your funnel, and
mm,
then they'll move down your funnel, be it a sales funnel or a marketing funnel. I think the act of selling is the act of converting. Like the business development process is, I think it's interchangeable with marketing in terms of like we develop business increasingly so in an automated way. If you're clever about it, we're increasingly having this technology do things in the background because actually, you know, buying behaviors changed as well. People would rather make their own decisions and will warm themselves up as a lead, but they can't warm themselves up as a lead for you unless they've got things to warm themselves up with, which might be, it might be a podcast about making yourself 1% better. It might be guides or ebooks or downloads or emails or any of that stuff. And yeah, so that's what I mean by that. Like it's enabling that sales function. So like what we can't do, I always use this example, but like we're not selling t-shirts. So I can't affect revenue very, very directly because like at the end of the day, like there's always a recruiter that comes in at the end of the process. Even if I get you to a point where you're getting jobs coming inbound, that's brilliant. But then the recruiter gets on the phone with the client and they fall out, or the recruiter doesn't provide the candidates, then there's no revenue there. So yeah, it's all about, it's to use a football analogy, like, we just put the ball in the box and it's up to other people to finish it.
It's a good point. So are you saying basically like marketing are like the attacking midfielders, the wingers then, and the salespeople are the strikers?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think because they're the only one, but maybe, maybe more in a, maybe more in a netballing sense, because I think anybody can score on a football pitch, but I think
Yeah.
you're only allowed to shoot if you're in a couple of positions in netball. So, yeah, I think if you're like a goal shooter and a wing attack, I think they're the ones that I don't know. I'd check my netball knowledge, but like, yeah, like absolutely, like the fundamentals of every recruitment brand is market, and even I never speak to. I speak to some recruitment founders and leaders and CEOs who say like, I can't stand LinkedIn. Like it's a distraction.
Mm.
Like, look, I've been stood there with people in an office and they'll go, look at this office. Look how many screens you can see LinkedIn on there. Look how much of our time is being sapped by this platform. But then on the same token, they all want everyone to be better at LinkedIn because
Mm.
LinkedIn and social media now is like it's the only real like one-to-many form of communication that actually works, and even that reach is decreasing alongside like email reach and deliverability rates are decreasing all the time. So like yeah, you've got to sort of box smart and be multi-channel with this stuff
Mm.
to enable that warmer conversation for the consultants to have.
Hey guys, quick one before we jump back into the episode. If you are a recruiter who feels like half your week disappears into admin, follow-ups, data cleaning, and jumping between several different tools, then listen up because this episode is officially sponsored by Sourcewell. Sourcewell is the recruitment productivity platform, and I don't just mean another tool that you'll forget to use. I mean the tool that actually gives you your time back. You can run your entire desk in one place. Outreach, sourcing, data enrichment, multi-step email and LinkedIn sequences, inbox management, and even call notes. It's all there, synced, automated, and according to their stats, recruiters using Sourcewell see 56% higher response rates, double the pipeline, and approximately save around 8 hours of admin every single week. If you're like me, admin as a recruiter is the devil, and this productivity platform really helps you save a load of time. So reach out to Sourcewell, go to sourcewell.com. It's a fantastic platform. I've used it myself. I really believe in it, and I'm super grateful for them sponsoring the podcast. Let's get back into the episode. Well, I'm absolutely massive on not only just the personal branding stuff, but the stuff in the background that enables you to get on the phone, right? So, as I mentioned there, I told you when I first got into recruitment, we didn't really have anything. So, there's a part of my brain that believes wholly in the old school approach, right? You just need a phone and a CRM and whatnot. But especially with AI these days and with everything else, like there are other things that you can do to help get yourself on the phone. So I think it'd be cool for me to kind of dig into a few of those bits and bobs with you in a second. Also, if you noticed I was looking away, I just realized, by the way, this is so like amateur of me. I WhatsApped my notes to a client by accident. So I'm reading the notes. I'm like, that's why. Because that's by the way, that's one of my pet peeves for podcasters when I see podcast like the host look away from the screen and don't do emails at the same time. So I was like, yeah. Anyway, so let's just talk about the email thing first then, right? Because I historically was pretty crap at emails. From my first ever job in recruitment, I didn't know actually how to do that. I hope you're well and all that type of stuff, like the actual format of the email, to then doing mass spec outs. I just didn't get any response from that. Just to preface this before I go to yourself, mate, I'm a little bit anti mass mailing like hundreds or thousands of people at a time because I think the results that you're going to get, I think personally, this is just my opinion, and feel free to correct me from if I'm wrong. I think it can damage your brand if you're just spamming people. So I'm just curious from your perspective, if I'm a recruitment founder or even if I'm a recruiter right now that maybe doesn't use enough email or just do one email and there's no follow up, what would be your sort of advice when it comes to like the email marketing aspect?
Um, I would say, can I ask you a question before I
Yeah,
answer
go for it.
that?
Yeah, go for it.
Am I allowed? You mentioned there that like part of you really believes wholly in the old school approach
Mm.
of like phone list, get stuck into it. If someone put a sort of gun to your head today and said, right, you've got to start a recruitment company tomorrow, what would your KPIs be for consultants in that company, or what would your behaviors be that you'd need people to do?
Um, cool. That's a good question.
Thanks.
I think in the early days, it'd largely be, and I think there's a lot of AI that you can use for this, but largely would be data entry stuff. So how many, like, first of all, I'd actually qualify what my ICP is, like what candidates am I placing, who are the decision makers within those businesses. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say I'll use my example. I did medtech sales, right? I did surgical urology UK. So I would figure out what the job titles are: sales representative, regional sales manager. They would be the main two sort of job titles. Who hires those people? National sales manager, sales directors, etc. So I'd populate my database. Like the first couple of weeks, I'd just be populating my database of good candidates. I would populate my CRM with clients with who my ICP are, and I typically prefer to work with sub 200 heads. So I'd use ChatGPT to figure out who the main sort of customers are in that sort of area. Whilst I'm doing that, I'd probably set myself like a KPI of how many candidates I'm qualifying per day, and split that in between two splits. So the first split would be open to work candidates because that's where I'm going to get my leads. The second would be headhunting candidates that aren't open to work. They would be potential for specking out or opening doors and CV stripping. And then my two sprints for business development would be who are the companies that are hiring, either from candidate leads or from website leads, especially in the early days. And then long term, like who are my dream customers that aren't necessarily hiring now. So that would be my main sort of KPIs, like adding certain numbers of candidates, clients, specifically with my ICP conversations, and to go one step further, like dial outs, because you can make 100 calls in a day and might not get through to anyone. And if I would go another step further than that, what are my email campaigns that, like, how many connections or how many people am I connecting with on LinkedIn? How many DMs am I shooting? Emails am I shooting? How many posts am I doing a day? Could probably go on for a little while, but that's I'd probably think that's where I'd start to begin with.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. I think that's just like, if I think about the tools that are in, if you go back to that thing about, a lot of the tools that you're using there are typically tools that you would consider certainly in the past as being part of like a marketer's toolkit. Like, and that's
Mm.
sort of where I think it all comes into it. I think it's like a blended thing, but I suppose what I was trying to get at is the fact that like to be successful in that way, even like the market mapping exercise, like we never did that back in the day. It was just like just get after it and see what you can get hold of. Like, but that strategic mentality is you TAM, like working out what that is and going after it. Like that is a strategic sort of marketing led type move. Like previously, you would never, that would never be an exercise for a sort of SDR to do or a sales rep to do or something like
Mm.
that. It would be something that would be outside of that. And I suppose that's the thinking. I think people have had to transition more to this sort of marketing led environment. But you mentioned email, and to go back to your point about that, I think I agree with you about the mass emails. I don't really love it. I don't love the idea of it. I think what it is, emails are all about messaging. They're all about timing. I think good emails don't start with emails. They start with your data as well. To your point there about like the first thing you do is make sure you have good data, segmenting your data in such a way that you can feel like you're speaking to people and not necessarily, I think people can see through this sort of AI slop stuff being like, hey, Charles, loving your work at the 1% Better podcast. Now, do you want to buy this bit of tech off me? Like it's, that is in and of itself, isn't it? People, like, in my opinion, would prefer just have their specific problem directly addressed in a short, concise email. And then if you want to come back to it, you can come back to it. I think, relatively small sequences, relatively low numbers of sequences and cadences,
Mm.
get in and get out. And then you can go again after a little while, but then you can sort of, yeah, baking into that, I suppose, is then slightly cleverer things like automations. How can we, for example, right place, right time, like things like Google reviews or LinkedIn recommendations and things like that, like they're getting those racked up now is not a difficult thing. It's just automating it. It's just getting right place, right time. As soon
Mm.
as someone's feeling a good mood, they're feeling a little bit like warm and lovely towards you, hit them with that link, and that can be automated. It's just been when they've been placed or just when they've had that final interview or whatever you want to do, and then they'll go, oh yeah, great, of course I will, thanks very much, and it's just that like natural progression. So yeah, I think for me it's it's not dissimilar to what you said. Good emails don't start with the emails, they start with the data, and before the data even, it starts with the strategic piece, which is who. All marketing needs to start with the who, and all sales obviously needs to start with the who. But like this idea of mapping out what your total addressable market is, knowing exactly what you said there, which is, which job titles you're going after, what's your ICP. I think people can misunderstand what an ICP is and think that it means that we're being prescriptive and saying you're only allowed to work with those clients. Like that isn't it at all. Like other jobs are going to come in all the time, but you need a bit of focus.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. That's where I'd start. Know who you're going to, know who their problems are, what their problems are, what their goals are, what their challenges are, and then tailoring your email content to that. Short, sharp blasts, get in and get out.
Yeah.
And then, rinse and repeat, really.
If you are a recruiter or a recruitment business owner and you are wondering, how do I elevate my skills in recruitment? How do I help my team improve their BD practices? Is my strategy working? Why are people not picking up the phone? Why am I not able to pick up the phone and be confident in selling? Why am I not able to get more clients on exclusive, sell my first retainer, get higher fees? Why am I struggling to convert clients from an initial cold call? Or maybe I'm not even getting clients on the phone. Like if you're struggling with any of those types of things, the short answer is there's no like silver bullet for this type of stuff, but that is ultimately exactly what I do. I help recruiters and recruitment business owners specifically with recruitment, business development, performance coaching. So if that is something that you are potentially open to, all my details are below here. You should definitely follow me on LinkedIn, message me there. Always happy to help. And first time we speak, I'm not going to charge a penny. Ultimately, this podcast, I want to help people, right? So if you are interested, reach out to me and let's talk. So when it comes to the like the problem part, so when I first set my coaching business up, one of my first ever clients, they were so and they're both Aaron and Callum have both been on this podcast. Like they're so good at within their email campaigns, their LinkedIn messages, and even on the phone. It's in your market, these are the typical problems. Now, I've been working with some like solo founders and like dual founders, and when I asked them like when you're putting together your emails, like what are the problems in your market? A lot of these people, mate, they scratch their head. They're like, oh, I don't really know. And I'm like, well, like surely that stuff like comes from conversation. Like I used to speak to companies and say like, what are the issues? What if they're not hiring? Like, what was the issues that you encountered? What were your challenges? What were the bottlenecks when you were hiring that sales rep, for example? What went well? What was the service like, etc. And then the more conversation you have, the more knowledge you have, so that in your emails moving forward, then you can say businesses like yours typically struggle with X, Y, and Z. Now, there are probably some people listening to this that go, yeah, do you know what? I don't know how to kind of put that in an email. It is very much like I'm a recruiter, and as to your point, I'm dead good at what I do. Come work with me. Like they don't really know what to put in terms of the problem part. I think if you're going to do email marketing and it is personalized, but not looking like it's ChatGPT personalized, where it's seeing you at the 1% Better podcast, which by the way, if you look at my emails or on LinkedIn and my emails, it is literally all that. It's utter trash. I don't reply to a single one. I got one the other day, mate. I'll show it to you off camera. It is just so painful. But my question I'm going to ask you then is like when recruiters are putting together an email campaign, and there's something I picked up on as well about like not necessarily too many steps, but I kind of go again later. Like how do you put that together in the email then around like the problems? Like, how does that work in an email?
So I think the first part of what you mentioned there, not to just dodge a question, but I'll come back to the question in terms of how you do it in an email. But what you were sort of getting at before was this idea of recruiters not knowing what their clients' problems are, and what that whole piece. For that bit, to get that bit and to sort that bit out, like I think you've just got to like ask them. And what big billers, right? If I think of big perm billers, for example, big perm billers aren't typically working with 30, 40 clients because they can't, because it's too much to manage. They're working with, I don't know, 4 clients that they do, 5 clients that do 80 grand a year with each, decent fees, 4 placements, 5 clients, happy days. Like that's it. And then and they will work. Oftentimes, they won't have to work as hard as someone billing 150 with 10 clients who's scratching around for it and all that. Why have they managed to build up those relationships? Well, they've managed to build those relationships because they're actual relationships. There's people who trust them. How have they got them to trust them? They've spoken to them and asked them questions and been interested and interesting. And that's all marketing is, really. It's about being interested and interesting in your market. And so that problems and challenges thing. So problems thing is that should be something that for me, it should be mandatory field in your CRM. Like, what in your contacts, like what are their, it might be, what are their goals for 2026? What are their challenges for 2026? What are they excited about? And it could be one of those three, but we want to have an entry in this box, in this note, to make sure that we've got that. And that can form the back of your whole marketing strategy. And when you get a collection of that, that's what can then really feed all the rest of your content. Like, a lot of marketing mistakes people make is that when it's just complete guesswork, and none of it comes from the client or the candidate. And it's because often recruiters are so protective of the clients and the candidates, but no one else can talk to them, and they haven't got time to talk to them about anything else. But the ones who are billing 500 grand are going out for lunch and dinner and golf and all that, and they're spending 5 hours with them just talking about sort of any old stuff. So I think first of all, like that piece in and of itself is a really good sales tool to also then form the basis of your marketing strategy. And that's how you create something that's like cyclical, as like a growth and revenue enablement engine. I think then when it comes to the structure of an email, I think you've just got to like address what the problem is, be direct with it. You mentioned I hope you will earlier. Like, I can't get on with it. Like, it's a waste of words. Like, your words are at an absolute premium in an email. And I hope I'm well. Like, you should hope I'm well. like that's a given. That's like, yeah. Glad you're not dead.
Yeah.
Hey, glad you're not dead.
I saw from your LinkedIn profile that you're not dead.
Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Confirmation of your recent appearance in the 1% Better podcast that you're not dead. Are you interested in BDAI enabled outreach? Like, yeah, like it's just about being really direct, and I think short and concise. And it's step one in chain might be like, you have this problem. This is a way you can solve it. If you want to know a bit more, give us a shout.
Yeah, well, I think to your point, and I think, especially if you're in a situation where you don't necessarily know too much around what the pain points are in your market, say you're a new person to that market, you've just set up a business, or whatever it is, then yeah, I think it largely will come from those conversations, and then you can filter that into both your content and to your email outreach. Something I said on a coaching session with a couple of guys yesterday, they were like, let's say, for example, this client doesn't sign our terms and wants to go internal. Like, what do I say in the follow-ups? And I was like, well, what value can you offer them in a follow-up call besides a candidate? Because a candidate, at the end of the day, that's what 90% of people want. They want to see what your product is, right? That's the large. If you can solve my problem, great. But you can give me this whole spiel about RPOs and retainers and how specialist you are. But if you don't actually provide them with good candidates, like, they're never going to trust you, and that relationship is burned. So candidates, yeah, it's a decent strategy depending on your market, but you need to understand what the pain points are, etc. So what I said to them was something quite interesting. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this. So in that follow-up call, ask the questions like, how are you getting on? How's the internal team getting on? How many people have you screened? Da, 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 da. And then just ask them a simple question. I'm trying to be a little bit more active on LinkedIn. And as to your point, rather than doing some guesswork and throwing some stuff out there, I want people like you, Mr. or Mrs. VP of sales, to scroll through LinkedIn and see something from a recruiter and go, that's actually valuable. That's actually something I would stop and read. What types of things would you stop and read? And both the guys looked at me and went, really? You would say that? I'm like, why the fuck wouldn't you? Like, I did that as a recruiter. I do it now as an external coach. Whenever I speak to founders and I say, look, I am very active on LinkedIn. Be honest, not everything is gold. Like, some stuff is like, oh, should I have posted that? But then I speak to people, or I have a good coaching session, or I have a good training session, and there's little nuggets that come out of there that feeds the content. And my whole methodology, and we'll talk about the personal branding thing in a sec, because I'm sure I'll learn loads from yourself. My whole thing is like, if I'm a recruiter or a business owner and I'm scrolling LinkedIn and I see Charles Kiriakou, do I stop and go, that's interesting, there's a bit of value, or does it help me get to know that person a little bit better so that if we do get on the phone, because there are some times, right, where there's some content that isn't necessarily like value, but maybe you played football on the weekend for the first time in 2 years. If you then call me and I saw that, I'm like, oh, you're the guy, I saw your picture around playing football, whatever. But that's a little bit of a rant there. But like, what's your thoughts around that? Asking your clients, like, what would you like to see on LinkedIn type of conversation?
Yeah. I think it works. Like, I think sometimes clients can find that sort of question a bit difficult. I think the default answer to that question can be like, "Oh, I don't know." I think that's where I would. Yeah, it's the same. It's two sides of the same coin. I think of just saying to them what are you excited about for this year? Like, make it about them. Like when we do, or certainly when we used to do a lot of my personal brand training for people. Like one of the first things that I would always say is like the basic fundamental of this is that everyone is awful. Like everyone is completely self-obsessed and involved, and therefore, like um, rather than me, they only care about them. They only care about how they do in their own life. They only care about how their problems get solved. They only care about like how they look good to their boss. Like that's all anybody ever wants to do at work. Like if they want to succeed, but they just want to look good in front of the boss because like that makes life loads easier. So like I think that yeah, making it so we're sort of giving them something, giving them the opportunity to like get stuff off their chest, I think is instead of taking something from them is always the best route. So yeah, I think that yeah, as I say, what you got, what are you excited about this year? Like what's worrying you? Like, is there anything on the horizon that you think is going to cause you problems this year? Or like, yeah, what are you hoping to achieve? And sometimes it's specific, not about recruitment. I'm not asking about recruitment. Like I'm not bothered. Like, a lot of it changes. You see different titles, but a lot of the industry's title still ends in consultant. But the consultative nature of it is up for debate sometimes. I think that what you were saying before about the candidate being the product, and like that's how I was sort of raised in recruitment as well, and I totally get that. I do think that with my sort of mentality, I suppose would be the word. I think that your product is a lot more than that as a recruiter now. I think your product is your data and your knowledge, and your like if I work for company A, then your example of surgical companies. If I work for company A in surgical, like I'll have an idea of what's going on at company B and C and D and E and maybe F, but I'm not going to know the ins and outs of it because I've got skin in the game. Like I work for the company I work for, but you as a recruiter, you've got to know all that because it's your job to. You've got to be the best network person in surgical. If you're recruiting in that much of a niche, like 200 head salespeople in the UK in surgical, you've got to know everything that's going on with everywhere. So you should be that point of knowledge and that point of resource. And people should want to talk to you just to get your insight because you're valuable to them. And that's where you become consultative and not super transactional.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The reason why I said that as well, by the way, because I didn't do a lot of spec outs. I did the occasional like verbal spec out when I knew a company was hiring. I didn't really do a lot of email spec outs, if I'm honest. I just didn't, just wasn't really me. But largely it did come down to at the very end, have you actually placed someone that is going to stick within my business? And in my sector, retention was a massive issue. We had this really interesting, speaking of marketing, we had our marketing manager put together something on our website, which was the bad hire calculator. And clients would fill it out and then say, we hired the salesperson in Germany and they left within 3 months. The salary was 80K, and it gives you all the calculations with the breakdown of how much that's actually cost you. So that when they actually get on a call with me and figure out that I'm, quoting them 30%, they initially go, fucking hell, that's a lot. Well, actually, the fee will be 25 grand, but you've actually lost out on 85 grand when this person wasn't staying in your business. So actually, you're saving X. And they were like, oh, I've never really thought about it like that. But
we did a similar project for a couple of years ago now for a tech sort of SaaS go-to-market recruiter. It was one of the first things that we were grateful for them trusting us to work with them on it, to be fair. And we pulled out something really cool, but that was a similar thing. It was sort of the opportunity cost. It was very focused on go-to-market roles within SaaS companies, and it was all about like how much is this seat costing you by being empty, first of all, as in terms of just being empty, but then in terms of the revenue it is not generating that it should be generating because it's a role, but then also how much is your interview process costing you at the moment, i.e. like just if you've got a VP sales who's on 300 grand, say, like I'm not going to do the maths, but your hourly rate might be the equivalent to, I don't know, 300 quid an hour, right? So every interview you do, mate, because you're 300 quid. So if you're doing if you're doing 2 first stage interviews with 10 candidates, then that's what, 6 grand? Like that's my fee. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like justing your time that you're wasting. So like that whole piece and articulating that, I think that's a really interesting way to go about it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think I'm trying to think who I've had on recently. That I've had quite a few people on recently with the AI debate, and whether it's helping or hindering the industry. And the common consensus for a lot of people I'm speaking to at the minute is that it's going to kind of almost eradicate the average recruiters, removing the term consultant, because the recruitment consultants are going to do exactly what you've just said there and what I used to do, which was really actually open the hood and diagnose everything good and bad about your process, why you're struggling to find someone, why you're struggling to retain people, what you're like, what are the competitors actually doing? Not just, oh, this company here offers this, but like specifically, like what's actually involved in their benefits package? Why do people stay at that business 3 years? Why are you unable to keep people longer than a year? All that type of stuff, with the cherry on the icing being able to place someone that's going to stay in that business. Because at the end of the day, if you charge a retainer to come in and do that consultative work, but then the client comes back to you and says, "Well, I still need bloody sales rep." Like you still need to provide them with the good candidate.
I don't know if you do though. I genuinely don't know if you do.
Really.
Yeah, I'll give you a working example, right? Years ago, back when I was in house, company I used to work for, we had a really, really good team, like the Mint, and we were sort of inch wide, mile deep in all our niches. We did surgical, we did other bits like that. But one person did plastics, right? And he was mint. He was really, really good. And he got a company come to him who he'd pitched for some work for months and months ago, maybe a year before it. Um, and it didn't get it. And they gave it to Corn Ferry. And it went for like it must have been 6, 7 months later, and they came back to us and said, "Look, right, we're coming back to you because you really impressed us with the pitch. Um, we were still looking for the CCO that we were looking for before. Corn Ferry have done an absolutely fantastic job. They just haven't found us anyone. So we've shook hands and we've gone our separate ways. And yeah, that's why we're coming to you." And then the guy, not me, the guy then went out. We did some cool stuff. We did some interesting bits about landing pages and things like that, and employer brand and video, and like it was a really cool bit of work. Went out and filled it in like pretty quickly. Filled it twice because one they hired as a VP sales and one they hired as a CCO. Like mega, like decent money fee wise, whatever, really good. I bet they still go back. I bet they still went back to Corn Ferry first next time because like that's the power of brand, that's the power of customer experience, and that's obviously an extreme example with a Shrek firm who've been around for 500 years or whatever. But yeah, I don't know if I think there's more to it than that
Mm.
nowadays. I think there sort of has to be more to it than that, and I think
Yeah.
that yeah.
Well, I'm interested to hear what other people think because I'm kind of split because the way I used to recruit was not just I'll ping you a CV, right? And I'm building something at the moment that allows the technology to listen into your sales calls and you can practice your sales calls and stuff like that. And I practiced with the AI earlier, and the AI basically said, just send me an email. And my gut instinct, like my natural sort of, yeah, my instinct again, I guess, was I never used to send a CV. I never did because I knew that if I send you an email with my CV, I've lost all control of the process. My main thing, the way I was taught when I was doing perm recruitment for 6 and a bit years, was close them for a meeting and then share your screen with the CV. Because the minute I share the screen with my CV, if they even see one little thing, like, there's a gap there for 6 months, I went to Australia, don't know, like, oh, that's fine. Let me talk you through that. Oh, they've sold these products, but I don't know if that's really that relevant. Totally understand that. Let me explain why I think it is relevant. Oh, okay, cool. And my CV to interview ratio that way was like 1.1 to 1. It was so much better than just sending a CV and just hoping, right? But
Mm,
this is where I'm a little bit split because I've worked with companies where I've sold them a retainer, I've worked the project, but they're just not paying enough money, or you've tried your best to get flexibility on like experience or location. Like they want someone to travel the entire country on a 50K salary where everyone's doing 50K and only doing London or only doing like Southwest, right? So there were times where they have got a shed load of value from me and gone, do you know what? You've done a fucking good job, but you just haven't found the right person. And to your point, have they come back to me? In some instances, yes. But I then had to then compete against another agency because another agency has placed someone. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think
mm,
it depends on the company because some companies, there are some businesses that recruiters will work with and people listening to this now will go, my clients really don't care. They just want candidates. And some companies want that service. They want them to solve their problems. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. But I think the goal should always be to go up that value chain and, turn those ones and twos placements into fives and sixes and sevens and eights and nines and tens. And like I find that, yeah, I mean, and that is the case, definitely. Like I recruited for 3 years or whatever, and totally got that, and had that with some people, and I'm not saying it's a blanket thing. I think it can be a natural. I spend a lot of time speaking to recruitment businesses. Like we only work with recruitment businesses on marketing, and we a lot of what we a lot of people, when we put ideas forward or things like that, you put an idea forward and everyone goes, right, okay, cool. Here's all the reasons why I think that won't work. And it's like, okay, well then rather than just go through all of the reasons why you think that might not work, let's think a bit about like, what is the worst case scenario if we try it? And, at the end of the day, if you go to market on a really consultative, value-based, like talent solutions led approach with clear products, a beautiful brand, value-added content, and all that great stuff, you're still going to get the transactional stuff, but I guarantee you're going to get the proper high level, like bigger projects as well. So like, just because some clients don't want it doesn't mean that isn't the way you should go to market. Would be my thoughts.
Yeah, well, I hear that. So you talked a little bit about the email stuff. One thing that pops up in a lot of my discovery calls and coaching sessions with recruiters is how do I, you mentioned earlier around marketing is to enable like sales enablement, right? To get on the phone, get in front of people. There's a lot of recruiters out there probably listening to this and people I work with that struggle to get in front of people. And there's a couple of different things. The thing I help people with is that sales avoidance mindset. I don't know what my value is. I don't know what my ICP is. Like, what do I even ask them? How do I deal with this objection? I help with that. And there's an aspect where I can help with the email marketing, with the branding. But I always say to people, like, look, I've done this and I help people, but it's not my expertise. So if I'm a recruiter myself or a business owner, and I'm going, do you know what? Like, yeah, I'm good on the phone. Just don't get on the phone enough because I'm not being able to get in front of people. Or perhaps let's think about like software engineering markets, for example, where it's notoriously difficult to cold call people. So you do have to rely on email marketing and stuff. Seeing as we've sort of touched on the email stuff a little bit, and feel free to expand on that if you like, what are the other different like multi-channel approaches around trying to get people on the phone more, would you say?
I think it's about, yeah, I mean, getting people on the phone is hard, right? And one to phone, the phone is a one-to-one method of communication, and that's why it's really important that the time you spend doing that is spent actually on the phone to people and being one-to-one and communicating with them. I would argue that spending hours and hours battering the phone without any connections is a waste of time, and actually there's a much better way of enabling that, which obviously I'm biased as to how you do it. I think to your other point, like about the software engineering thing, like if you cold call them, they might never want to speak to you if they're a software engineer. They might just not like talking to people. Like that's fine as well. You need to sort of be respectful of the world that we live in and the world that people live in, and particularly sort of since the pandemic, like, that sent people a lot more insular in some instances, and you've got to sort of play by their rules. I think to answer your question, to get in front of people, there isn't a silver bullet to it. I think it goes back to what I said right at the beginning, that idea about like touch points. And it comes down to trust, which is, notoriously low in recruiters as a profession, rightly or wrongly. So you've got to put the time in to build trust, and that's got to be multi-channel to give yourself the best opportunity of building that trust so that people actually want to have a conversation with you. Like, so that would be, LinkedIn, like your personal branding on LinkedIn is almost always like top of mind for me, where your clients are, but then also think about where your start with the end in mind in terms of your consultants and your clients. Like, where are they? Like, do you need to be on TikTok? Like I was speaking with a really, really cool brand, really cool recruitment brand, sort of last week, who specialize in beauty, and like they're doing some really cool things, but like, they don't want to be doing the same cut and paste LinkedIn stuff. They want to be on Instagram and beautiful videos on TikTok and that sort of thing and going like that. So you got to go to where people are. But you also want to be doing email. But you want to get to a point where you've got warm email. So it's not just cold stuff. It's you've got to be creating value so that people actually say, yes, I want to hear from you because like you add value to my life. You make me look good to my boss. Sorry if you can hear noise, by the way. I think someone's like moving a house upstairs. So yeah, I think it's like the way to get in front of more people is to be like it's recency, decency, and consistency. Like recency and decency with the content. I.e., is it relevant? Is it up to date? Is it in line with your audience's goals, challenges, problems, whatever? But then consistency is a big one. Just like keeping going. Like if it's 20 touch points before like you make a sale, like that means it's 20 touch points. How do we get those 20 touch points? And let's literally plan it out. How are we going to do that? Right. How are we going to get those 20 touch points? And again, a common response is, well, it's not 20 touch points for me when I make a sale because like I can spec a candidate in and then I'll get them sent out and then I'll place them. Like, yeah, but what's your ratio of that, mate? Like genuinely, like what you sometimes like sunk cost fallacy or whatever else it might be, like the biggest punishment, the biggest slip up sometimes companies can make is when something works a little bit. Because you go, oh, right, yeah, this works a little bit. That worked once, and I'm going to chase it forever. That don't mean there's not a better way to do it. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Like, a weird analogy popped into my head because I got a friend that is always, I've been binge eating and I'm going to lose weight. And then he does like a 72-hour fast. I was like, I'm back down to 12% body fat. And then he shoots back up. I think that's a kind of, I don't know if that's a wild analogy or if it makes any sense. But like, if you're doing like those spec outs and then just managing it via Teams and then doing a deal, but then like your ratios will largely be shit. It's like just trying to fast every 2 weeks for 72 hours to lose weight. It's not like a really manageable, repeatable sort of process to kind of do. So I agree with you.
Feast and famine, definitely. And when it comes to marketing, particularly with recruitment agencies, like, we're all raised as recruiters to be, how many times did you ever said to you, like, right, your desk is your business. It's basically like running your own business. You run it how you want, right?
That was literally my first day of recruitment, by the way.
Yeah, it was everybody's. It was mine as well. It's like, it's what everybody says to you. But like that sort of all or nothing mentality is bred into you literally from day one, which is basically, I can do everything. I don't need anybody else. This is all me. It's survival of the fittest, blah, blah, blah. Like I'm a monster. But like that isn't the game anymore. It's a team sport. Like going to market now is a team sport and you need more than just you to be really effective. You can do it on your own, don't get me wrong, but like it's way better if you've got like a proper team brand function behind you to help you get there and do that. So yeah, I think that's important to know.
I was going to ask you a question when you were talking about the personal branding piece. So if I'm a business owner or recruiter or anything in between, and let's say I don't really do a lot on LinkedIn, let's just say my content is just I'm hiring for this, I'm hiring for that. And I want to start doing content that is going to win me business, right? So I always try and explain to people, and again, I've never progressed to be a expert with personal branding, sorry. But for me, I like to do a little mixture of like, adding value, market expertise, insight, but then also like personal shit as well. Like I only do it like once or twice a week where, I posted a lot about what I've done in Thai boxing or, some stuff that I've done on the weekend. Just so that when I do get on calls, what I have noticed is that people ask like, completely cold. I say completely cold. Like we've messaged a couple of times on LinkedIn, jumped on a Google Meet or something, and they go, "Oh, how's your knee? Oh, I saw your Inter Club last week. How'd you get on? I saw that you do this, that, and the other. How's that going?" It's just a way of like warming people up. But if I'm a recruiter or founder, whatever in between, but I want to do content that is just gonna get me inbound stuff. Like how do I go about doing that?
Yeah, I think with personal branding, it goes back to the same thing, which is like recency, decency, consistency. And to be consistent, it's got to be easy, or it's got to be easy-ish. And for it to be easy-ish, it's got to be comfortable for you. It's got to be like a place that you feel you're happy to do and you're happy to talk about. So topics you're happy to talk about and happy to capture. So like, you're a great example of someone who is pretty good at this and does a lot of LinkedIn, is very active and is happy to share those parts of your life outside of recruitment and whatever else. So that's, that's really good. But if someone isn't, then I think my message would be don't. Like, don't do that. I think if you want to do content that helps you win work, then you put yourself in the shoes of the people you're trying to talk to, and you think, well, what would stop me scrolling? Like, what do I actually care about? Like, if I'm a VP sales at a surgical company, like, what are my actual goals and problems? Well, right, if I'm scrolling through and I see, oh, right, hang on, who's this Charles guy? He's just said that he had a conversation with Dave, who works at my competitor, and that he said that this had changed their go-to-market in the last few months because they'd made this change, or they'd brought in this hire that I'd never even thought of. That's interesting. That helps me with my goals. That helps me look good to my boss. Like, it all just comes back down to that. Like, my advice for people doing personal branding is just like, just get your head down and just do it. Like, thinking about putting yourself in the shoes of it, trying to build some pillars for yourself that you can frame your content around. So some dead easy ones like industry news. On a Monday, I was going to talk about industry news. This week I spoke to someone else in the industry, so I'm using their voice to sort of amplify my brand out there. Yeah, similar things like, like that, and building pillars around it, but just doing things that are like tailored, because yeah, I agree with you. Like, sometimes the personal stuff can really land and can really work and can be really good. But then what's more important is just that you're out there. Like, if you've got 10,000 LinkedIn followers, then, your content's only going to get shown to probably 100, 200, 500 initially. It depends on how they react to how much further it goes. So you've got to do the content first of all. So you've got to be comfortable with it. And then people build the perception of you over time, as long as you're always putting yourself in their shoes. So a lot of people can put a bit too much thought into personal branding and posting on LinkedIn before they do it. And I would say, have a bit of a strategic mindset to it. What we said earlier, the goals, challenges, problems, all that. But then just start doing it, start talking about it, and it'll work. And what you find is then that any leads that do come in that are inbound are pre-qualified. They know what you do, they know what you talk about, they're into it, and they go, right, yeah, let's have a chat. Like, I have it where I'll get people sending me a message saying, I'm ready to talk.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know who you are, mate.
Yeah.
I'm ready too. Let's go.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's interesting, mate, because everyone I've had on the podcast to talk about their experience of personal branding and stuff, the number one recurring theme and answer from people is just fucking do it. Like, just do it. Like, play around with it. Like, try and test it. Like, find your own voice. Like, you could start doing some content and go like, this ain't me. Like, this isn't really what I want to talk about. Like, I remember when I used to do medical device recruitment, there was this one girl, one of my competitors, that every week she would do like it was a big post, bear in mind, but she would tag all the major businesses, like, this company was acquired by this company. The CEO was the one that led this company got funding. The co-founder was the one. And it got so much engagement, and people kind of knew her as like the subject matter expert of what's happening in the market, right? So I think that's like an interesting sort of angle to go down. But something that you said, and I'm like, that's a really good point, because whenever I do like training, or when I did training academies, or I work with more junior people that have never really done LinkedIn, they've only done like Instagram and TikTok for their friends and whatnot, and they're always saying like, oh, I don't know if I really want to share like my personal life. Like, I'm always like, you don't have to. Like, I'm saying I do that because I'm confident and comfortable in who I am. And the ironic thing as well, mate, is I could do a post that gives so much free value and all the rest of it, and it does decent. Then I'll post a picture of my daughter. My daughter's just done her first proper poo, 100 likes, like 10K impressions. I'm like, why? Like, the ones that are like not relevant at all, like when I got married, or my engagement, whatever it is, they pop off. But then you offer loads of free value, and it's like doesn't really get that much. But I know the whole like thing is not really
but I mean, what's not much? Like, I think again, like, is what's not much is, it might not be no likes, no comments, no shares, but then if you look at the impressions, might have 500 impressions. Google what a picture of 500 people in a room looks like. It's loads of people, even the stuff that's shit. And like, when you get people who, like, a common objection is, I'm not a social media person as well.
Yes, I get this.
I'm just not really a social media person. It's like, well, you weren't a cold call person, you weren't a recruiter person, but you got made to do these things because it makes you money. So this is another absolutely essential free part of your toolkit. Costs you nothing to do, gets you in front of thousands of people, that makes you money. So
Mm.
become that person, like you became a social media person, like
Yeah.
became a cold calling person, like became a
Yeah,
recruiter
yeah.
person. It's the same thing.
100%. What this is a random one for you, popped into my head now. When you're scrolling on LinkedIn or, the recruitment businesses that you either work with or want to work with, etc., what types of content do you see on LinkedIn from recruiters that make you cringe?
um, I'm it's a bit of a cop out, but I don't really like. I like jobs. Jobs is what makes me cringe when I
Mm.
just see job after job after job after job because I just think like it's just selfish. It's not giving. And someone will argue that it is giving. Someone giving people jobs. It's not. If that's the thing you're selling, like you're flogging that. That's all you talk about. Then you just seen as someone who I'll come back to when I need them, rather than someone who I want to be always on with all the time.
Mm.
Like there's some companies who really divide opinion on LinkedIn with their content, um, because they think, oh God, well, I'd never want to work there. But like, that's the point of it. Good, they're not right for you. Loads of people see that content, um, and they think, bloody, hell, I'd love to work there.
Mm.
So like, when it comes to like cringy, sort of air quotes cringy, like content, particularly video stuff, I'd say do it. Like, it's who you are, it's what you do. Put yourself out there, and then that's who people what you either like take me or leave me. Like,
Mm.
that's what we try and do, and we certainly help our clients try and do. And it's about attracting the right people, but it's about putting off the wrong people as well.
Yeah, that's huge. Like when I first started doing the whole personal branding stuff, I went on a couple of podcasts because kind of started talking about like my issues of mental health when I was like 16, 17 years old. And a couple of people, like I was speaking to clients about it on the phone when it popped up in conversation, they were like, mate, that's a fucking story, man. Like if you share that on LinkedIn, like that will help some people, like talk, like spread awareness. And this is like 10 years ago when no one fucking talked about it. So I just started talking about that, like just my
Mm,
personal post, like once a week, just talking about like, I used to be really depressed. I was like on
mm,
antidepressants and blah, blah, blah. And this is what I've done. And then slowly adding little bits of value in terms of what I do to help myself. And that started to do well. And then we started to record video adverts because like no other recruitment agency, like all the content back then was just we're hiring for this, da, 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 da. So I was like, it's boring. Like, can we do something different? Should we just get me like in front of a whiteboard and just talk about the job? And then we've done
mm,
that. And then I used to just generate a shed load of candidates coming to me. I was like, this is all right. Then I just thought, because back then I don't know how I got a job. I was a nightmare to manage. Like I was just so out there. So I was just like, let's just do some like stupid videos. Just do ones that's like just really comedic nonsense videos of me like shadowboxing in the corner and then talking about something. Everyone in the office is like, Charles, don't do that. That's so dumb. And I'm like, yeah, but it's me. Like I know that that's me. And if some people want to work with me, great. If others don't, then great.
mm,
Because if they see me and go, oh, that guy's just he's too immature, go and work with him. He's way more mature than me. This like
mm.
commercially, right? But if they like that, then they'll work with me, and that worked for me. But there was something I was going to ask you, and it's escaped my mind. That was it. I was going to say this actually. I don't know if you've heard of this before, but I saw something on LinkedIn about a few years ago now, and it said for all the agencies and recruiters that post only like jobs, basically in terms of their content, think about an auditorium with 100 seats in your market. That thing that you're showing on the screen, maybe 5 or 10 of them like it. The rest of them are going to leave. So if that's all you're doing, all of your connections just don't even bother engaging with your content. So actually, not building your brand. It's not. There's no relevance or value to those people because they're not looking for a job. I thought that
No,
was really interesting.
I agree. I agree completely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Cool. Lastly, before we do wrap up, because I'm conscious of time, one thing we did put down, I think we've kind of covered the whole differentiating for recruitment agencies. I think we've covered that a little bit, but there's one thing I did want to ask you, and I think this could add a lot of value to people listening and watching this, is what do recruiters and or founders need to do around marketing to exceed in 2026 from your perspective?
I think it's about knowing who you are and leaning into that and knowing the problem you solve that only you solve. And yeah, being really just lasering in on look through where all your invoices got paid from in the last 2 years. That's your ICP. Think about who you help, go after them. That'll be it.
Love it. Nice. Cool. All right. Well, last question then, Kris. Following today's episode, how can people get 1% better in recruitment?
They can think about things in a bigger picture way. Think more like a marketer instead of a salesperson. Think about someone who's trying to build a brand, and ask that question to all of your clients and all of your senior candidates. What are your problems? What are you scared of? What are you excited about this year? And then that is where you create all your content off the back of it.
Love it, mate. Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, in terms of how people can reach out to you and like what types of people to reach out to you. So yeah, who should reach out to you and how do they get in touch with you, mate?
Yeah, so at Kitto, we're an outsourced in-house marketing agency. We help brands grow. We help brands stand out in recruitment. So, we want to work with recruitment businesses who are growth-minded and marketing-led and want to do something a little bit different and exciting whilst really paying attention to those underlying numbers and enabling those sales. Best way to reach out to me is on LinkedIn. So it's Kris Holland, Kris for Chris. Give me a shout and let's do loads of marketing.
Love it, mate. Cool. Well, I'll put all of Chris's details in the bottom of this for people that have made it this far. Thank you very much. And let me know what you think. Do you think recruitment is a sales job or a marketing job or a mixture of both? Interested to hear people's thoughts. Big shout out to Kris. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for watching or listening. Make sure that you are liking, commenting and subscribing / following the show, whatever platform it is that you are watching / listening to this on. Also make sure that you follow me on TikTok so that you don't miss out on some clips. The monthly newsletter gives you a roundup of the episodes that happen in that month with some actionable takeaways for you guys that's going to help you get 1% better in recruitment. I would love for you to comment or message me what your biggest takeaway is from this episode. And if you or someone that you know is interested in coming on the show, as you can see, we have had such a broad variety of people that have come on the show, all in the aim to get you guys 1% better in recruitment. So if you want to help support me with the show, make sure that you're getting people in touch with me, and also just reach out to me as well around the recruitment coaching training piece. That's ultimately how I fund this podcast, right? But loving doing this. Thank you so much for watching, listening. Can't do it without people that watch and listen to this podcast. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.